Off-axis areas in video games are always going to pull me right in. If I can see it, I want to explore it. Those of you watching probably carry a similar thought process. The worlds of games have so much to them that we never get to experience, and it's fascinating to find things that have laid dormant for years out of reach. When we're tackling worlds the size of galaxies, there's quite a lot to explore. And that's where we once again find ourselves today, on the edges of space, fixated on something quite strange. Today we'll be taking a deep dive into a place that I've been wanting to talk about for a while now, but have only really highlighted the strange occurrences that happened around this particular location. We're heading back to Bowser's Star Reactor, and diving headfirst into the strange interior of Bowser's inaccessible warships. Bowser's Star Reactor is a strange level for a lot of different reasons. For those who have followed the channel for a while now, you'll know that this is where wormhole traveling was first discovered. In fact, it was discovered just along the edges of the area we'll be talking about. I utilize flying hacks very often in the Galaxy games, so that we can get an in-person viewpoint of places we can't normally go. We could, of course, just move our camera there if we wanted to, but a tangible game world is far more interesting to me than one that is intangible. The premise of the flying hack is it basically enables the flying ability that is granted within Rosalina's observatory anywhere in the game. It's normally only usable here, but it's still able to be activated by modifications. It exists in the code for Super Mario Galaxy 2 as well, which is why we can utilize it in that game too. Anyways, we want to head into the found area and shoot towards Bowser's giant head floating in space. As we fly into Bowser's reactor, we're able to see a set of warships behind us in the distance. Upon landing, we can't quite look at them head on completely due to the angle they are at. There's actually two sets of them, and the ones above us are too high to see. This is where we want to boot up our flying hack and take to the skies. Upon approaching the first set of ships, we notice something is definitely strange. It's almost as if they are standing up straight, perfectly balanced on the nose of the ship. If we land on these ships, we definitely have to be careful so we don't slide off to our death. Honestly, about the only places we can stand in the first set of ships are on the mast of the propellers and on the back of the ship itself. Due to the rotation of the ship, the stair-stepping effect on the ship's top area actually is oriented in a way that makes us slide off continually. If it was rotated the other way, we'd be able to walk along the edges of the flooring. Moving to the back of the ship, we can actually move inside the propellers without Mario losing his head. Since you normally are sort of pushed away from the ship if you fall off it in normal gameplay, Mario never really comes in contact with these blades, so it's neat to see them from this perspective. However, the first set of ships aren't really the most interesting out of the bunch. When I explored these for the first time, back in the first quarter of 2018, that's when I discovered the strange wormhole exploit. Traveling between these two sets of ships, going from the front set to the back, is when I made the leap into deep space. There's a gravity range off to the far right here that inverts gravity, and when I hit it at the precise moment, I traveled about 5 to 10 minutes out of bounds or so. It was quite strange, and I spent the next year or so trying to figure out how it actually occurred. I recommend watching my video on it if you haven't seen it already. But anyways, this next set of ships is honestly the more interesting of the two, because for some reason, one of these ships we're going to next allows you to go inside of it. As we fly to this next set of ships, it becomes apparent that they aren't oriented the same way as the others. They aren't standing on the nose of the ship, but they are rotated 90 degrees to their side. Because of this, we can actually walk alongside the cannons that poke out from below. The side of the ship doesn't have unique collision at all, and the cannons are just inside a glass box basically. The propellers in the back have an edge though, and it prevents Mario from walking into them. On both of the outer ships down here, there are doors on the ship that cannot be opened no matter what we do. It is pretty neat trying to figure out how to navigate around them though, and utilizing wall sliding mechanics to get to the lower levels. However, the middle ship down here is by far the coolest of them all, and that's because there's a hole on the back part of the ship's deck. Traveling over to the middle part of this ship reveals that the two closed doors are open as well, but we can't actually go inside them despite being able to use the ship's steps as ledges. But the hole on the back of the ship can be entered. If we make our way down to the bottom rung of the ship's edge and flip up into the hole, we'll find ourselves in a room we're not supposed to be in. It's a bit trippy though because the room is of course sideways, and the camera doesn't know how to behave properly. There are 3 closed doors in the interior of the ship that we can't do anything with. However, there is an anchor in the back of the ship we can walk on. It's kind of neat to think about this strange forgotten anchor that's been floating out here for ages. Beyond that, the concept of an anchor for these types of airships are super strange. For one, they've never been anchored onto anything. and 2, they have never needed an anchor because they float perfectly in place without any hint of wandering off. They're definitely a work of art. Anyways, this anchor can actually be used as a ramp to go into another door, or so it looks that way. Unfortunately, the hallway it leads to is blocked off, and the door cannot actually be entered. We can see that this wraps around deeper into the ship though if we take the camera for a spin. In fact, it actually connects outside. So if we rearrange ourselves and make it out of the hole we first came in, we can actually utilize our flying hack to go out and around the ship and into the silver pipe that protrudes out of it. Doing this allows us to walk back through the quote-unquote closed-off texture inside the pipe and back into the ship. The camera gets stuck unfortunately, so we have to move it to make sure it follows us. Walking in this metal tunnel is pretty difficult because we can only walk in the absolute bottom of it. Trying to move elsewhere in the tunnel makes Mario get stuck in a continual sliding animation. When combined with the awkward camera we're using, it's easy to get stuck in one spot for quite a while. We can, of course, use this tunnel to connect back into the main room we were once in before, and upon doing so, we pass through a one-side barrier and can't go back. So this doorway we were looking at before does work, but only from one direction. Some of you may recognize this ship's setup from another level, which honestly, I'm drawing a blank right now while writing this script. So if you remember the level in which you fall into the bottom of this ship, let me know in the comments. In the files, the ship is labeled as Koopa Ship C, and normally is supposed to have a seesaw attached to the top of it. The object isn't loaded in though, so we don't have one. For the fun of it, I brought the ship to our starting location and oriented it in a way that wouldn't kill us or hinder us from entering. We're able to jump to it now and walk around it like normal. We can go inside and check out the room the way it's supposed to be, and we can even enter the pipe outside. With this orientation, the gray pipe behaves correctly and actually causes us to slide straight into the interior of the ship as intended. To make things even more strange, alongside this ship, I decided to park a different ship. A ship with its scale all thrown out of whack, hence why it looks all sorts of messed up. I also dropped down the lava balls from the end of the level here too, then crashed another ship into this ship, because why not? Climbing upon this monstrosity is really strange because the scale isn't uniform. The length is 4 times as long as the height, and the depth is twice as long as the height. The object scales up in game, but the collision is broken. We're basically surrounded by invisible walls that lock us into parts of the ship. They are often too high to jump over too. I imagine this is because the scaling isn't uniform. If we approach the edges of the ship, we fall right through them. We can board the crashed ship though, although the gravity just makes us slide like a madman. One last interesting thing to talk about is that the lava spears that are at the end of the level actually don't have any collision. We don't get burned or get pulled to their surface. They're merely for show, which makes sense because we can't make it over to them at all in real gameplay. All in all, I have a lot of weird memories with this level. Exploring these tilted warships was pretty thrilling the first time I did so, especially after discovering that one could be entered. And beyond that, knowing that I triggered my first wormhole warp in this level makes me remember it even more so. Traveling thousands of meters in a split second definitely caught me off guard and won't be something I'll ever forget. Thanks for tuning in for this battleship tour. I've been wanting to make this one for a while, so I hope you enjoyed it. As always, drop a like if you did. Thanks for watching, guys and gals. And until my next video, cheers.